We are back with another sip and share. I've just realised I've finished mine. But we are interviewing one of our beautiful Origin Woman Network members who's actually one of our OGs, been a member for quite some time, Keiko, and she's here to speak about her business, who has had a rebrand in the last 6 months, Komorebi, which I've just realised I haven't said so well. So I'm going to throw over you to Love, and you give us, we just spoke about the meaning of this word, and I just had this moment. So let's start there. You have had a rebrand. We'll get to that soon, but tell us a little bit about that phrase and the meaning of that phrase in connection to your business.
Yes. Hi, everyone. It is the Japanese word for that phenomenon when little sun rays sort of drop through the leaves in a forest and you can actually see them come down to the ground. That's what the word is for. So it's komorebi, meaning light trickling through wood.
Yeah.
And that's those beautiful sun rays that you can see. And the idea behind it was, first of all, it's a Japanese word, and I'm half Japanese, so that made sense. And second of all, it was sort of, in relation to what I'm trying to do with the business, sort of giving you these little moments that will let some self-care and some relaxation sort of come through, the thick treetops of what is everyday life and stresses in everyday life, and just find these little moments where that falls through and shines through.
Amazing. I mean, I know a lot about your business, so this makes total sense to me. But for those that don't, please tell us more about your business. And it's been on a bit of an evolutionary journey. So tell us in its current season.
The current season is, I think, probably the season that I always wanted to be in somehow and didn't quite figure out until I got here. So currently it is a singing bowl therapy and meditation business, which I would like to use to obviously help people through singing bowl therapy and sound healing and sound baths, but also teach people to meditate, teach people to find quick moments of self-care. With a really strong focus on personalization, because self-care is different for everyone. Things land differently for everyone, and not everything that's called self-care is actually going to work for everyone. So the focus is to really give people an opportunity to dip into different options and different ways to meditate, different sound healing even, to find the one that actually works for them, and to also give people the opportunity to learn how to just, reset yourself in a stressful situation within a minute or two. It doesn't have to be an hour in the morning, an hour at night. Just a quick reset throughout the day, and get a routine going that you can sustain because it actually suits you and your needs.
Yeah, which is so important. I mean, the self-care word, it's been around for a very long time now. I've been championing this for a very long time, but I'm really interested to know where does this come from for you? Because we've worked on this, but we talk about within Origin Woman Network that we are here because we're led by purpose. We're led by some kind of really deep purpose as to why we do what we do. So where did this come about? What is the purpose of this business, and why is this so important to you?
I think it's because, there's actually two backgrounds, funnily, but I've just noticed this sort of along the way as I progress through this journey. I realized that there's certain stations in my life where I thought that's part of my purpose as well. So the latest one is having been in a corporate setting, very busy job, traveling all the time, jet lagged all the time, long hours all the time. Absolutely loved that job, really loved it. Got to see parts of the world that you wouldn't go on a holiday. But I also developed an anxiety over time, feeling that my body was giving way and was just giving up on me. And I noticed that a lot of times I noticed things were changing, but I didn't actually think it was a burnout, didn't think it was this anxiety developing because I wasn't looking after myself or couldn't find a balance. So for me, I feel like looking back, if I would have had the tools that I have now, I would have been able to just keep doing that job because I absolutely love doing it. So I would like to give people that are now in this environment where they are super busy but love that job, just to give them the tools to actually be able to balance that against the stress they have in life And then I had 20 years ago, I was a paramedic, and I saw people burn out in that job as well. And it's such an important job, and it's such a much needed profession, and people just burn out because there's no tools to actually help them, help themselves, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. I'd forgotten that bit from what you told me when we did some coaching, but it's so interesting. Driving the car this morning, my son saw someone in a paramedic uniform, and he goes, that's really strange that I just saw a paramedic, and, they help people, and doctors help people with their health, right? But he was smoking, Mum. And, what we know about particularly the health industry, it's often those people helping others that can be most in poor states of health themselves. Yeah. So let's just come back a step, because you kind of glossed over this, but you found yourself in a position with your job that you absolutely loved, that you felt like you couldn't continue because of the states and levels of stress. And so take us back to that point, because this is well before this business existed. What were the implications of that? What were the signs that you were seeing? Because this will speak to others and, show how important this is.
I think it was a sort of a slow burn. It started slowly, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it started with things like I would finish a project, I would have to pack my suitcase, get on a flight, different country, new project, and on and on and on. And I had these really weird feelings around packing my suitcase after a project. There was this really strong sense of, I have now overworked myself for a week. I need to get my own time in. And the only control I had in that moment on that last day was when I would pack my suitcase. And there was a real resistance towards that. And I just called it a travel depression. And everybody thought, yeah, okay, I have that too, sort of feeling. And it got so bad that I would finish a project at 9:00 at night. I would go out for drinks till 3:00 in the morning, pack my suitcase in 45 minutes and be out the door in a cab at 5 a.m. in the morning, thinking I'll just sleep on the flight. So I would really push that moment where I packed my suitcase further and further back. And that then turned into actually the other way around at home as well. And it went so far that I would have a flight, say 5:00 in the morning, had to leave the house at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I would have my suitcase packed and everything, but I would wake up in panic, crying, waking up my partner, literally saying, I don't know what to do. Do I quit or do I call in sick? Like, I'm not ready. And I remember just completely in panic, waking up saying, I'm not ready. I can't leave. And then, it calms down. 2 hours later, I was on a flight out, and it was forgotten till the next time. And it kind of happened more often. It even happened on the road. And so it was just one thing that was getting worse and worse and worse. And at some point I thought, it's not, I obviously can't be crying every time I need to leave the house. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Which is so, it's devastating in a way, that, and I see this a lot with women, and I think it's not that men don't, but it gets to the point where you're in that position where you might actually have to make the hardest call of your life, which is, I can't continue in this job. And I've worked with women that have reached those crossroads moments where, their career and their aspirations is one thing, but their health, their relationships are another. And it's often feeling like it's just gotten so bad that something's got to give, which is really, really horrible. It's a horrible place to be in. So initially your business has had a couple of different stages up until getting to this new evolution, its new season. Just talk us briefly through that, because I know that other businesses will go through this as well. And even for coaches or people in service-based roles, you might start out, servicing a particular niche or group or everybody, and then you realize that it actually really helps to refine and refine and refine. So tell us a little bit about, your stages of business and what's helped you really get to refinement.
Well, I think there is a big sort of turnaround and running the other way, but I started out doing natural bath salts and body scrubs. And that came out of just, living a sustainable life, a low tox life, and sort of creating my own products for my home, and then creating it for friends and family. And then sort of the idea came to just, do a little Etsy shop and start out. And I did that. But I did have very early on this feeling of, I'm now running a business and I'm selling products, and that's great. But I had a feeling of, there's not enough of me in this. There's something that I want to contribute with this business for other people. And I just couldn't figure it out. But I had a very strong sense of, it's probably not going to stay bath salts, or maybe there's going to be an additional element, but I really don't know what that is. But just decided to take the time and just move through it and see what happens. And then as soon as I sort of finished this sound and singing bowl training, that was it. That felt like that is the missing piece. That is actually the me that wanted to contribute and help other people. And I think, again, that's going back to, having been a paramedic for a long time, a lifeguard for a long time. So it's always about helping other people. And yes, the bath salts were also a contribution to health, but it wasn't enough of me personally giving to the business. And from there, I guess from there, I just went with it. And then really quickly realized, no, I want to be actually a bit more specific about how I use sound healing or sound therapy and sound meditation, and also take it away from the spiritual space that it sits in a lot these days. Just give more access to people that may not have the access to their spirituality yet, or no interest in it. That's fine too, because I don't think it's a spiritual practice. It may have originated in temples, but it's actually Eastern medicine. And for me, it's important that that is what it's looked at as. And I think once you open up your mind and you open up your heart and you create space to actually sit with yourself, spirituality comes, but everybody has their own journey. It's not my place to get people to be spiritual. It's my place to open them up to whatever possibility there is. And so that's slowly where I sort of started moving towards the crowd that is just busy at the moment, just needs support in their regular life, and everything else that evolves from that is completely up to them. And that can easily be spirituality, but I find that there's a lot of people that don't have access to it, and I want to sort of cover that part.
Yeah, beautiful. And so what was the turning point? So that you've done a fair, bit of work this year, and this real shift in your rebrand has happened. What was the catalyst for the turning point and helped you pivot?
I think the turning point was that I realized what was important. It wasn't important to have as many events as possible and work with as many, say, yoga, Pilates studios as possible. I love working with them, but it was more like I just needed to, it was more important for me to sort of get the actual messaging across and the actual therapy or training across, rather than having to worry about all the ins and outs of how do I fit into a business that's already running. It was more like I want to be, walking into a situation. And I think that's where my corporate background kind of kicked in, the efficiency, right? The efficiency around the messaging was, you walk into a space, you do your workshop, you walk out, you get paid. Rather than having to worry about how do I fit into what's already in place, because there's usually a sort of well-being space in corporate places already. But it's also because I know that space really well. I think that's also the other thing where I thought there is a way that I can step in and really focus on the messaging and not have all the other organizational noise that comes with everything else that you do, with your events that you run, with the spaces that you hire, with corporations that you do. I think that's where sort of that came in, and where the turning point for the rebrand was as well, because I feel like with what I was doing and with the Moonlit Dragonfly as the old business name, it kind of in people's minds I think ended up in that area that I sort of didn't want to be in. So it seemed a bit airy fairy, let's put it that way. And so there's definitely place for that. As the brand. And there's definitely place for that, and absolutely whoever is in that space is absolutely legitimate to be there. It's just not where I want it to be. I want it to be a bit more clear cut, less, airy fairy. I don't know how to say that. I don't mean that in a negative way. I guess I just wanted to be a little bit more crisp and clean about, let's learn how to meditate, let's learn how to look after ourselves, let's learn how to combine that in our stressful life rather than everything else that comes from it in the long run anyway.
I think this will help make a bit of sense. And so, we've done some work together, and we kind of were working together when you were just really clarifying this, which was that what became really clear to you was your origin story, the roots of your purpose were having worked in highly stressful, high-level roles, and the point that you got to, leading you to have to exit one of them, and how important, your own discovery of, sound healing and how that really supported and helped you to be able to recalibrate, calm the nervous system, and that, maybe meditation on its own hadn't been overly helpful for you because of the type of person that you are and the environment that you're working with. So you really identified this pathway to self-care, this pathway to greater well-being through sound healing. And you've got such an interest in not just the feeling of the sound healing, but the scientific background and the history of it. And so this, what you wanted to package up and ultimately package up then a package and a service to really speak to the people that you were a number of years ago, because that's what you felt was your deep why and drive. And that was the point of difference, as opposed to just being, with respect, another sound healer at retreats or at a yoga or Pilates studio. So what we're hearing here is how important, again, and we talk about it again all the time, but how important it was for you to really unpack where you came from, what was the purpose. And that wasn't overly clear in the first couple of years, which is really common for a lot of businesses. But when you got down to it, what was the pathway forward was clarity on, the business model needs to change, who I speak to, my messaging, and the brand needs to come towards that. And, you were like, there was a re-energization that you experienced around, bringing this to people that may not necessarily jump into this type of thing because it might, seem a little airy-fairy as you share. And what many of us know, when you have experienced sound healing, that it is incredibly impactful and can, have significant impacts on our well-being. Amazing. All right, let's talk about, what do you feel has contributed to, your success thus far? It's been evolving, there's been shifts and changes, but what do you think's been contributing to your ability to, reach this point and reach where you're at now?
I think just sticking to authenticity and making sure that my way of approaching sound and approaching new clients really opens up that accessibility. Stick to accessibility. It doesn't have to be spiritual. You want to go woo-woo, we can totally do that. You don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine as well. Sort of just opening it up to a bigger crowd. And I think that's where sort of my passion lies, and just being driven by that passion really worked. And at the same time, it just feels like I just feel like a real a real need to help people, enjoy what they're doing, regardless of if that's a stressful thing or not. Just find a way to really help yourself. It's just, I think there's a lot of drive out of passion. There's also a lot of drive to be very specific about my knowledge, to share my knowledge, to gain a lot of knowledge. That has been definitely a part of that. And then there's also, creating a support system, people that will come up and say you're doing a great job when I don't think so. Having having just cheerleaders around, networking, collaborators. So there's a whole, a whole crowd of people around that really sort of helped me through that as well. Yeah. And I think my sort of looking at my own experience and knowing what self-care is for me and how it works for me, but understanding that it could completely work in a different way for someone else is also something that I think has helped me reach different people a little bit quicker because of that realization that personalization is really important.
For sure. I feel like, I'm not sure if it's over 12 months that we've known each other, but, I'd say, you're definitely, what you touched on was, support crew and network and cheerleaders. And, at every stage of your business, you've been so proactive in getting yourself out there and networking and looking at the opportunities where you could add value, but where there might be opportunities for partnerships and collaborations. And that's led to, as you've evolved from the natural products, pretty quickly, it seemed, having your sound therapy in loads of different locations in our local area. So, that's incredibly, I've seen the proactive nature of that. And I would say, I agree, it's definitely contributed to, as you've changed, the market hasn't necessarily needed to take a while to change with you. It seems like it's been really effortless that your new services and offerings have been taken up and taken up, I think, is probably the best way to take it, right?
Yeah, it was also, I think it was just really interesting because when I changed it completely and I said, actually, I'm doing that now. I had a lot of people that just the first reaction was, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, how are you going from this to that? There was no what? It was more like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I was almost a bit disappointed because for me, that was big news to do something completely different.
Yeah.
And then the feedback was, yeah, I can see you do that. Yeah. So I also was lucky to kind of, I guess, other people's feelings around what I was trying to do or where I was going next sort of just puzzled in with.
Yeah.
I don't know, my personality or the purpose I had for the bath salts or something. It was all very seamless. I was very, I would like to say I was lucky, but I kind of feel like it was sort of meant to be as well.
Well, I think these things are a combination of a couple of things that we do have control over and then maybe feel like we don't. One is when we're deeply connected to that purpose, to that why, that's an energetic connection that is a resonance with others, right? It's when we're out of alignment, when we're out of alignment with our purpose and what's true for us, that's when the authenticity isn't there. So you spoke about authenticity being so important, and your brand was even in the previous business as it is transformed into the current one. So yeah, I think you need to own, one, how proactive you were with networking and building relationships and connection. And then, as you touched on before, being in alignment with your authenticity. And we talk about, some of the most successful, powerful businesses are that really uncover their uniqueness and continue to lead with that, because that's when you can and do set yourself apart and are not just another X, in a of that industry. So we'll wrap up. I'd love to know, what have you got coming up? What do you think are your plans from here?
Well, first of all, I'm sort of going back into doing some events by myself again, but that's sort of just the immediate future. I think it's moving towards integrating the meditation part a little bit more, looking into workshops or even meditation courses where you learn to meditate or find a way to find a meditation style that suits you. And from there, it's going to be workshops, it's going to be retreats, it's going to be a lot more all around rather than just around sound. I won't give up the sound. I absolutely love doing that. And obviously the therapeutic part is definitely something that I want to continue leaning on, but it's probably going to be a wider range of services and see where it takes me from there.
Amazing. And if you have any kind of, piece of advice or, what would you share with anyone within the Origin Women Network group, any other, businesses that are, in startup or in that 2 to 3 year mark, because that's kind of where you're at, where you've been.
Yeah.
Your top pieces of advice for anyone?
I think the top pieces of advice is really find your crowd, really find the people that will support you, the people that will, promote your business when you're not there. Find the people that you can go to and say, oh my God, I just don't know what I'm doing. I need to quit. I can't do this. That will keep you afloat. Mm-hmm. Also, network is always very important. But I also think that what you keep preaching is it actually works, right? Going back to why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? Why is it so important to me? And just keep coming back to that, especially when you're doubting yourself, was very important. And I feel like if you stick to your sense of your values, your integrity, your authenticity, then you'll probably get, you've got the right stuff already going on for you. You just need cheerleaders here and there. But I think as long as you stay true to what it is that you want to share with your business and what it is for, you can't go wrong. And it's always going to be scary.
Yeah.
It's always scary. It's not going to stop being scary. So let's just not, try to overcome.
Right. The fears are always there no matter what level. We
Yeah.
talk about new levels, new devils all the time as well, particularly in the bar group. I remember there was one point this last 6 months where I did a live on that and everyone was like, yes, that's exactly it. So I love what you've shared. I'm just, talked about there around that, being clear on that why and purpose and how it helps us in those times of self-doubt, 100%. And also, this is why we start with it in the first month of the bar, because it informs the messaging. It informs our direction. It helps us identify that ideal client, and for you, it helped you really identify that ideal client was the corporate person, the busy person in their successful career or, at a particular level who isn't currently maybe accessing or feels like self-care is a little bit out here or too hard. And that's the person that you were able to really identify. Yes, I'm fired up. I'm motivated to reach those people. And that really suits how I want to deliver my service as well. So it's kind of this perfect match, which again, makes social media easier. It makes choosing who we contact to be, to find our ideal clients and people. And then, of course, you touched on the importance of that network and having your cheerleaders, which again, if you are clearer on who you look after, why, then those people, it's way easier for them to refer you. And I even had a chat with one of our members yesterday. We ran into each other at footy. Our kids play footy. And she's pivoting at the moment. And I said, okay, when you're, in the next couple of weeks, I need you to tell me exactly who you want to work with, the things that you want to do now so that I can now refer you if that comes up.
Yeah.
So she's fabulous in the direction she's going, but I can't effectively refer you if I don't know and I'm not clear from you who the why is, the purpose. So this network does that. But it's only effective as you're clear on that for yourself, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that sort of reminds me of that is I had cats very early on when I was still doing bath salts. And I do remember having a chat to her. And one of the things that she said to me was, well, why are you so special? And I was like, what? And I thought I knew why I was special, right? Yeah. And then she said, well, you could just be, you could just be a mom who now, because she's a mom, decides to sell baby wear. And I was actually offended. I was like, what? But what it actually did was that I really had to get clear on, okay, so what is it actually that I want to do with this? Where do I want to go with this? What is it meant to do for my clients or my clients? And I think that sort of kept nagging over the last, I think she said that to me 2 years ago. And I still have that sort of in the back of my head when things become a little bit unclear. It really makes a difference to know what it is that you want to do, what it is, and potentially even what it is that you don't want to do. That's how
100%.
I learned what I wanted,
Yeah.
is by trying everything and going, nah, and just dropping everything that was just not, that I was literally not feeling it. I was like, this is too hard. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. It's eating away at my motivation. So I'm getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And just cutting it, even if that means you're cutting money, just cut it, because it's not going to be worth it.
Well, we've just landed, and I'm going to wrap up there because that is a valuable piece of gold that you've just shared. And again, easier to do when you are clearer on where your why and the purpose. But I love what you said. Sometimes it's you actually start just focusing on, or you get clarity first on the things that you don't want to do, that don't fill in alignment, which helps you get clearer to what is. And that may mean making some hard calls and making some decisions that you do say no to particular clients or jobs. But in the long run, that's what builds a sustainable business. Because if we stay saying yes to the things that aren't in alignment, we are closer to burnout, closer to wanting to walk away from the business, or it just not being profitable. And then we make it mean us, and that we're not successful, or that we can't do business, which often not necessarily the case. Every single one of us can do this. Again, it's around, helping you become clearer on that, what that is. So sometimes it takes someone having a few words that are the catalyst. But thank you so much, Keiko, for sharing.
Thank you.
Business journey thus far, and we'll share your details when we share this in the group. It's an absolute pleasure to witness an evolution of a business, and to see someone make those hard calls and pivot. And you've done that a couple of times, and you decide and you take action, which is absolutely what's helped you make this faster transition. So I just want to really celebrate and congratulate you on that. We can't wait to see what's ahead.
Thank you.
All right. See you next time.
Thank you very much. See you.